What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, and Seth Galina here with you guys. Talk a little bit of quarterbacks here after week 13 in the NFL. We got a couple of fun quarterback storylines that we're going to get to. Joe Burrow having the MVP season that won't become an MVP season. So we're going to talk about Joe Burrow a little bit. Obviously, we're going to talk about the guy who is the front runner for MVP right now in Josh Allen and how he has been playing, just that Bills offense overall, what it's looked like with Allen this season. It felt like there was going to be a lot on his plate this year. Not that he's doing nothing, but a lot of good help from the teammates. So is he worthy of that MVP cause? We're going to talk about Jordan Love. It feels like, man, for as good as the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions are playing, it feels like the Packers are a forgotten team, but they got a quarterback that can really take them the distance here. We'll dig into Jordan Love, and then we'll talk about Jared Goff a little bit as well. We'll talk about Jared Goff and his role with that Detroit Lions offense and one of the best teams in the NFL, where he fits and how much of a piece of the puzzle he is to that offense and making it go. Seth, how you doing, my friend?
Good. Tired. What are we week 14 right now?
Yeah.
Like we're getting to the end here. We're in the stretch run.
Just wait until the NFL adds 2 more regular season weeks, where then we'll be at 20 and they'll cut 2 preseason games. So it'll be like 1 preseason weekend and then 20 regular season games. We'll have double bye weeks for teams. Actually, the double bye week might be better for our sanity. Because it's, less games that we'll have to cover every week. No? Is that not true? Is that another thing?
No, because us here in our ivory tower of NFL media.
Yeah. Go on. I like the start of this.
We don't have bye weeks.
Well, that's true. But when we cover every single game, if there's less games in a week, I guess, you know what, selfishly, that helps me. Doesn't really help you because you're helping with the broadcast side of things. So the broadcast will go on no matter what. So 20 regular season weeks will just be 20 regular season weeks for you.
Yeah, and I'm scheming. I'm going to send a strongly worded letter, like an actual written letter to Roger Goodell to make sure that this doesn't happen.
He's going to respond to you personally and be like, Seth, because I'm such a big fan of your work and I'd love to see more of it. We're actually going to go to 22 regular season weeks. It's going to be the NFL regular season all year long, and you personally are just going to have to work all of them. I know you were working overtime because it was there were a lot of good quarterback performances that we've seen this past week. It was a stretched out NFL week, no bye weeks for the holidays. We had the 3 Thanksgiving Day games, we had the Black Friday game, and then we had the regular Sunday and Monday slate as well. So let's talk about Burrow first. Let's do Burrow, and then we'll get into the other quarterbacks. But I feel like I want to talk about Joe Burrow because it was another fantastic performance for Burrow, and it was another loss. 38 points for the Bengals in this one, and it wasn't enough to get the victory. They were at home. They were wearing the beautiful black on orange uniforms. I mean, the vibes couldn't have been better for them to pick up a win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They scored 38 points, and it still just was not enough. Burrow, 5 big-time throws in this game, playing so well. Another grade in the 80s for him. Seth, it just feels like he's been playing the position about as good as any quarterback in the NFL this season, and we're all sitting here saying, wow, if the team would be better, he'd be having an MVP caliber year. Well, if we're all saying that, can we just, call it for what it is? Can we call it an MVP caliber season? What have you seen from Joe Burrow this year and another game that feels like it's been wasted on this Bengals season?
So my hot take here is that, I don't think, this isn't the hot take. The hot take is not that he's playing the best he's ever played. I think that's pretty clear. But I think the hot take is that this is the Joe Burrow that everyone thought was Joe Burrow for the first 4 years or 5 years of his career. But look at him. He's making, he's super smart and he's making all these plays with his legs and he's moving around and stuff. This is the closest to LSU Joe Burrow that we've gotten in terms of his playmaking ability. He is unstoppable now in terms of moving around, feeling his way through the pocket, making plays on the run, not taking sacks. He's on a different level right now. And yeah, he's in the tier 1 of quarterbacks. And it's just too bad that this team just can't draft well or can't figure out a free agency plan, especially on defense or on the O-line. But again, he's he's neutralizing the issues that they have on the offensive line to a certain degree. Like, you can only get away with it so much, but he's neutralizing those issues. He just can't neutralize any of the issues they have on the entire defense. And I look at a team like the Chiefs where, Mahomes is not the guy that he was, from like 2018 to 2022, let's say. And they're 11-1, 10-1, whatever they are. They won the Super Bowl last year because they've found players. They've continued to draft well on defense. They've continued to find players on defense in free agency, and the Bengals haven't done that. And that's just not fair to how good they are on offense. And it's also not fair to like Lou Anarumo, who's obviously a good defensive coordinator, who just doesn't have the pieces to put in good positions. That's too bad. And yeah, he should be a contender for the MVP. Obviously he won't be because he's playing at such a lights out level, and it's super fun to watch.
In the 3 games or the 3 seasons in which Joe Burrow has played an entire season, because he had his rookie year, which gets cut short. He only plays 11 weeks in that one. And then last year, dealing with a lot of different injuries, also only plays up to week 11 in that season as well. The other 2 seasons, the 2021 season, the 2022 season, and then what looks like the 2024 season, his passing grade in those 3 seasons, 91.1, 91.1, and then 90.5 this year. It's just elite quarterback play from this dude, really, since he has been in the league. Outside of his rookie year, whenever he has been fully healthy, this dude's been incredible. You mentioned the mobility, which is something that I want to sort of get into. You watched a ton of him when he was at LSU, and you've obviously watched a lot of him throughout his NFL career. It feels like he's faster now than he ever has been, or at least like he's more willing to move. Obviously, the long run. What was it against the New York Giants, where he just had that super long run where it was that touchdown run, and people were like, "Okay, Joe Burrow, I didn't know you had that in you." But even like outside of that, I'm watching him extend plays, step up when he's stepping up in the pocket. When I would watch him before, sometimes he would step up in the pocket and it's like, oh, okay, well, he's only stepping up in the pocket necessarily to avoid the pressure. And not that he's not doing that now, but he will step up in the pocket. If you commit too much of your pass rush resources to around the edge, and the offensive line is really able to form that pocket and give him room to step up, he will not only step up and make a throw, but now he's keeping linebackers honest because he'll tuck it and run too. So to me, it's an evolution of his game. Is that mobility? Do you sort of see that as well being something that it's beyond just like, oh, okay, he just happens to be running a little bit more this year? It feels like it's more a part of his game and how he's processing things right now.
Yeah, and again, like that was a feature of his game at LSU, especially in 2019, less so in 2018, but in 2019 for sure. I mean, all the Heisman moments of him moving around, like the big one against Georgia, where he makes Trevon Walker miss a couple, like twice, I think, on the same play. And then he finds Jefferson for like a 70-yard pass. And those were the plays that people looked at and said, well, that's why he won the Heisman. That's what we're going to get in the NFL. And it kind of wasn't what we got in the NFL. Now, we did get the other stuff, which is like the elite processing, the accuracy, and all that stuff. And that's great. But we're seeing this aspect now, like you said, we've never seen before. It cements him as a tier 1 quarterback, not just in this year, but I think like when we're looking at projecting forward, cements him as a tier 1 quarterback, because I honestly didn't have him as a tier 1 quarterback before. And he wasn't this quarterback before. Like I think there was, the Super Bowl run is carried by the defense, and obviously the offensive line was horrible, but the Super Bowl run is carried by the defense. There's a lot of plays, a lot of that passing grade is carried by Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, especially over the shoulder catches. And I think this now is and not to say that he was like the 25th best quarterback. He was like probably like the 6th best quarterback, but he wasn't the 2nd best quarterback, which I think a lot of people thought. Now he's definitely in that group, in that tier 1 group, with Mahomes and Herbert and Lamar and Allen. I think those are your tier 1 guys. It's fun to watch now. And they don't have a running game.
Not a consistent one. Some weeks they do with Chase, but like
some weeks. Chase had a couple big runs.
It's not as consistent
Pittsburgh.
as it was. It felt like with Mixon, at least the couple of years that Mixon was really on top of things. But no, I do agree with you. When you look at Joe Burrow, it's hard to find a category in which he is not top 5 in the NFL. He is number 1 in PFF passing grade. He is number 1 in passing yards. He is number 1 in passing touchdowns. He is number 1 in big-time throws. He is number 7 in big-time throw percentage. He is, number 3 in turnover-worthy play rate. He has only thrown 5 interceptions. His adjusted completion percentage is 14th. His time to throw is extremely low. His time to throw is 2.31 seconds, and he is still able to operate this way. I mean, that's just incredible. It's not 2.31. It's 2.70. Sorry, I was looking at somebody else there, but still, that's an incredibly fast time to throw with how well that he is playing and the output that he has.
Keep going. No, I like this. Keep going. Give me his average depth to target.
Okay, let's see. Amongst qualifying quarterbacks, which is qualifying quarterbacks with at least 100 attempts, his average depth of target is 8.2, which is 21st in the NFL. His quarterback rating is 107.4, which is 4th best in the NFL.
Give me the pressure to sack rate. That's what we're all here for.
It's going to take me a second to get to that one, but
I'm going to get it before you. But I think
you probably are going to get it before me.
My theory is with Burrow, like I said, is like he's taking so much less sacks when he's under pressure because he's moving at such an insane rate now in the pocket, and that's been. Again, it's just been super fun. So he's 28th of the 42 qualifying quarterbacks with a 17% pressure to sack rate. Not taking any type of pressure. He would get like this, like we saw years where he was getting sacked and we blamed it on the offensive line. And we were right to blame it on the offensive line. However, the guys in the tier 1 group of quarterbacks, even with bad offensive lines, found ways. And now Burrow is finding ways to create offense even with the even when they get pressure in his face all the time. And it's special. Like it's really special. And again, like, every week you're gonna watch the Bengals. I think they're on Monday Night Football this week against the Cowboys. And you're gonna watch I'm sure Monday Night Football is gonna post the stat where it's like, hey, the Bengals are like 0 or 1-4 when they score 30 points, and the rest of the NFL hasn't lost a game when they've done that. Like you're gonna keep seeing that, and it's really not fair for this offense that is as good as any offense when T. Higgins and when they're all healthy. It's as good as any offense. Again, they throw the ball a lot, so you're not getting the kind of benefits that, we're going to talk about Jared Goff in a second. Like Jared Goff gets some benefits of how good their run game is. Jordan Love gets some benefits of how good their run game is in terms of what defenses have to do to stop the run. They don't really have to do that against the Bengals, and yet it doesn't matter because he's so good right now.
Well, I'm very curious if you still have the tab up. Who are some of the top pressure to sack ratio quarterbacks this year?
Top in terms of high or top in terms of low?
Low.
Okay, low, yeah. So Derek Carr, which is like, we already knew, like this is Derek Carr is like lowest at 8.4%. That's been a guy who obviously has a history of trying to get the ball off before he's under pressure because he doesn't like taking hits.
Right.
But I think the difference is with Clint Kubiak there, he's creating offense, he's creating opportunities for Derek Carr to get the ball off and create positive plays. That was always the issue. It's like, well, Derek Carr's going to get the ball off and throw a check down or whatever. Now he's, before pressure gets there or when pressure gets there, he's able to, this route is about to break open for a huge chunk I remember one of them early in the season against the Cowboys where he hits Shaheed, where he's kind of under pressure. The offensive line is getting backed into him, and he throws over the offensive lineman and throws like a 40-yarder or 50-yarder to Shaheed. And the other two that we're talking about today are Jordan Love at 9.1% and Josh Allen at 9.8%. And those two are, kind of similar in some ways in terms of how they're able to kind of deal with pressure. Love is a lot of like, I deal with pressure by making kind of fadeaway throws, which don't always come off, and we'll talk about that. And then Allen is just how I deal with pressure, stiff arming guys and like running around and then making a huge play.
Well, let's transition to Jordan Love then and have sort of the Jordan Love conversation. I'm watching the game this past weekend with Love, and it's once again sort of a manifestation of the play style that we talked about with him probably like a month and a half ago when we were talking about Jordan Love really coming into a groove with him getting healthier and sort of the version of what he looked like last year as one of the highest graded quarterbacks down the stretch in the second half of the season, and how you could certainly see that mentality there for him again this year. He is just such a big game hunter, man. He wants to solve, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily wrong because he's really good at it. He wants to solve his problems by making massive throws deep down the field. Like, that's what he wants to do. Not to say that he doesn't have checkdowns, not to say that he doesn't throw hot things like that, but like, if you pressure Jordan Love, if he's in any sort of situation where you allow him to throw it deep down the field, that is what he wants to do. He is a big game hunter type of a quarterback, as some people say. And it was once again another week this week where I was watching him, and there's so many throws against the Dolphins this week where he's just, again, his number one thought is, how can I push this ball as far as possible? Now, it's not, when I say that, I mean, like, he's not super reckless. You have to live with it a little bit, but like, you see the adjusted completion percentage, like, it's super high. He's fantastic at recognizing when he can take these attacks down the field. The turnover worthy plays, 0 this past week. So even though he's got a higher average depth of target, even though you have him attempting these deeper passes, it's not like he's putting the ball in harm's way. Sure, it's like tight throws against tight coverage because that's what it's always going to be. Well, I shouldn't say always, because the Denver Broncos left Jerry Jeudy wide open on Monday Night Football, and so that was a little bit of a shock. But normally when you're pushing the ball deep down the field, you're always going to be throwing against tighter coverage, but he's always doing so in a way where it feels like he's giving his team the advantage. So talk to me about Jordan Love, sort of what you thought with him going up against the Dolphins, what you thought about him so far this season, and then just his play style and how he is evolving as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a good matchup, the Packers against the Dolphins, because of their kind of issues in the middle of the field. Like they've replaced linebackers. They've had issues at nickel. So like, this was a great opportunity. This is where they want to run their routes, the Packers. So, and they left a lot of guys open. I mean, Jaden Reed early in the game, obviously Love overthrows him, but there's just a lot of that against the Dolphins defense. And with Love, I think it's always going to be like, on a game for game basis, is he executing and throwing the ball accurately? Is he, this offense, I mean, it's a great offense. They run the ball. It's such a unique way. They run the ball really well against pretty much everybody. I've said this before. They don't do a ton in the passing game. And like, you watch like the Bengals, so like I watched the Bengals and then went straight into the Love tape. And it's like, the Bengals are doing so much. And like, they have a veteran quarterback who's been in the system for a long time. They have receivers who've been in the system for a long time, so they can handle that stuff. And Joe Burrow's in complete control of whatever pass concept you want to call. The Packers are really running like 3 plays, and everything is off like those stems, right? Everything that comes off of that tree. Then they branch out into a little somewhat different stuff. Obviously, they'll give you different formations to kind of window dress, but they're really doing the same thing all the time. Like, it's crazy. And so, like, Love has gotten so good at that. And it's just, for me, it's like, can he execute? Like, he really, like, his accuracy can wane at times. He loves to throw off his back foot, quote unquote, and those balls can die in the air. Like it happens. He underthrows balls, underthrows receivers. But when it's on and everything's clicking, and again, I put most of this on Matt LaFleur. Like, let's not beat around the bush here. This is the best or a top 3 play caller in the NFL and designer in the NFL. Like, it's crazy. So I put a lot of that on LaFleur. You're seeing what happens when you take a Hall of Fame quarterback and you remove the Matt LaFleur in New York right now. So a lot of that is on him. But Love, when he executes, and we saw it through the back half of last year, we've seen it in spurts this year. It hasn't been as consistent, but when he executes, sky's the limit, because they're going to get what they get in the ground game. They're going to get what they get in the screen game. And then everything else is down the field. So if he's executing down the field, which is easier said than done, but if he's executing down the field, wow, they are so good and explosive.
Yeah, I was looking up his numbers while you were talking. He's more even with big time throws and turnover worthy plays this season as a whole than I thought. His big time throw percentage is 3.6%. His turnover worthy play percentage is 3.7%. I do feel like he is more in a groove lately. I'm pulling up his numbers from the last month to see if it is. Yeah, it's still, I guess it's still pretty high. I guess it's still back and forth. There's a lot of big time throws. There's a lot of turnover worthy plays. I guess it is kind of just something that you've got to live with Jordan Love that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. You talk about them sort of wanting to do the same stuff over and over again. Not necessarily like a broken record, but it sounds like it's just kind of like, hey, these are our strength. These are the concepts that we like. This is like how we like to attack deeper down the field. What is that stuff? Is it more of just you're saying, hey, these vertical routes with the types of receivers that they have with guys like Dontavian Wicks and Christian Watson and Dobbs when he's healthy? But obviously, like, those two guys are big reasons for it. You got Jaden Reed as sort of an underneath player, but also somebody who you could attack deep down the field with. Like, when you say that, hey, their offense is relatively like a lot of the same things that they could just do at a high level, what do you mean by that? What's the type of stuff that they're trying to do in the passing game?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, but they have this dagger concept where the inside receiver is running call it a through route. So he's trying to split the safeties. And sometimes if it's one safety, then he'll run across the safety's face. If it's two safeties, he's going to run between the two safeties. And then you have this big in route, usually about 12 yards that they run it. They've evolved this concept. It used to be a deeper concept for most teams. And teams still have that in their playbook, but like, you know, you look at Atlanta and them and some other teams have kind of shortened this dagger concept and kind of evolved it to the modern game. And they just pair that with everything that they do. I mean, I'm off the top of my head, I think they ran it 7 times against the Dolphins, which is like, Go find me a team that runs one concept 7 times in an NFL game. This isn't high school, like it's NFL. It doesn't happen. I've charted them as having run it 18 times in one game.
Wow.
Last year against the Lions, I believe. So like that just doesn't happen in an NFL game. And they do that. And they're really good at it because they window dress it and they have just enough. So like that first route runs, like I said, through the safeties, let's say. The second route is that in route of 12 yards, and then they get a bunch of plays. Love didn't throw it, but they ran it where that second receiver is coming up. Now, you know, the corner is like, man, I have vision on this whole situation that's happening in front of me. I see that first receiver run the through route. I know what the second receiver is doing. He's running a 12-yard in route. I'm going to jump that because I can't just sit back because the timing's there and it's going to be thrown over the linebackers and there's a big window. If I don't attach this route, I'm screwed. And then bang, they hit you with a corner route on it. So LaFleur's been doing that for years. Like every time you think you have a beat on that play, they give you something else. They give you the blaze out that Dobbs caught against Chicago a few weeks ago. Like they just keep doing stuff like that and they keep staying one step ahead. And like I said, when Love is executing, bang, they are really good. And like you said, the receiving core, Tucker Kraft, get him the ball in space and he's making guys miss. So it's such a well-rounded receiving core with a lot of guys who you can't double one guy because they'll find ways to get the ball to other places. And it's such a sick offense. I love watching it.
Yeah, it is an offense that is a ton of fun to watch, especially with Love being the one to throw the football because, like you said, you have your core plays and concepts that you like to go to, but then in those moments where LaFleur will tell you, and I'm not saying like it's just on the fly, like you do a lot of this stuff over the summer when you're installing, and LaFleur kind of goes like, okay, these are concepts that we love. This is what we're going to hammer home. When they adjust, when they think they know what we're about to throw at them, here's the changeup. Like here's a counter, and Love has the arm to be able to do like, okay, well, you know, you talk about like these deeper routes and these kind of like under routes right underneath them. Sometimes you might have it where, like you said, like you're going to adjust to where like the underneath route, you're almost going to use that as the decoy. And you say, okay, well, when they jump this route, because they're going to, because we run this concept a lot, you've got the arm, hit them over the top. And Jordan Love, I think, is a quarterback who, one, his chemistry with Matt LaFleur seems really on point over the last year and a half, but two, he is the talent and caliber of a quarterback that can really hit. When we talk about all the throws, this is what we really mean. We're talking about hitting the throws that sort of unlock stresses to the defense, no matter what you're doing, whether it's your go-to formation and your go-to calls or it's the adjustment calls. Like, you don't have a quarterback where you go, God, you know, I'd love to lure the safeties down a little bit with this in-breaking route, and then, you know, once they think that it's coming and once they go to jump, we can hit them over the top. But we don't really have a quarterback who can, you know, have the arm talent to really hit them over the top. There's none of those worries with Jordan Love. So Jordan Love really sort of rounds things out, and that sort of brings up another quarterback in Josh Allen, who I want to get to in a second. Talk about one of the most well-balanced offenses in the NFL. Another thing you got to have balance, finances. Something you got to plan for in the future. It's very, very important. Some things the school didn't teach you, like to plan that stuff appropriately, specifically when it comes to your kids. How do you help your kids financially? Well, Fabric's got you here. Fabric makes it easy to set up a kids investment account that'll grow with your child, you know, as they grow, and really helps prepare them for a great financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life, it was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to manage and plan for your family's financial path. With a kids investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. It's called a UGMA account. While kids cannot invest while they are minors, these UGMA accounts allow you to invest on their behalf, gives their investments more time to grow as they grow. Funds can be used on basically anything. You know, first car, first house, you know, starting a business when they're a little bit older, but it can also be used for stuff like while they're still kids, still growing, tuition, books, summer camp, after school activities, things like that. It's just a really good way to have a fund that you're kind of putting away, that you're allowing grow, all that great stuff. It's online. Setting up an account takes you as little as 5 minutes. You can get started investing with as little as $1 a day, and then you can just manage your child's account and monitor everything right from your phone. Super simple. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family today. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric, MEET, fabric.com/PFFNFL. This is a paid promotion by the Fabric UGMA product and not investment advisory services. Portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors. Incorporated custodial services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Terms apply. Learn more at meetfabric.com. Josh Allen, right now the front runner to win MVP for the Buffalo Bills. We've seen phenomenal seasons from Josh Allen really over the last 4 years. Basically, he had those two first years that he was in the NFL. Looked a little bit rough, had his good moments, had his bad moments, and just ever since that third season, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't know if statistically you would say that like this is his best season, but the offense just overall is playing so well. And so that sort of brings up another point here. We talk about this with other quarterbacks. We're going to talk about this a little bit with Jared Goff to kind of end the show, but with Allen, I went into the year, Seth, thinking there's more on his shoulders this year more than ever. And I thought it was going to be too much. It's why I had the Buffalo Bills as a Super Bowl pick multiple years in a row. And this year I went away from it because I just thought there was going to be too much on his plate. It actually somehow looks the opposite. Not that Josh Allen's not doing incredible things, he is. But especially with the addition of Amari Cooper, it looks like he has more help, more diversity of where the football can go and how they can trust all three of the running backs that they have out of the backfield, all 6 or 7 of the receiver options, whether wide receivers or tight ends. It feels like he can go anywhere with the football, and this is one of the most balanced attacks in the NFL. Josh Allen's a reason why. What have you thought about Josh Allen, and in particular, being the odds-on favorite right now to win MVP? What do you think about that?
I have a question for you first. When you were watching the Bills 49ers snow game on Sunday night, that was fun to watch, right? Like, there was like the most fun blowout island game that I've watched in a long time. Am I wrong about this?
So I don't think you're wrong. And as someone who grew up in Florida,
oh God, I don't want to hear it.
I hate the cold. I hate the cold. The cold sucks. You know, like we got the Cincinnati studio here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it's very cold right now. Walking to work, scootering to work, which I normally do, miserable in the cold. Don't like it. Would not subscribe. However, playing sports when weather is a factor is extremely fun. Even growing up in Florida, when we had rain games, I grew up playing a lot of soccer, like when it would rain, like there is just that part of you just want to play your best. Like, because it's almost like the elements are against you, the odds are stacked against you, you want to play your best. It was like the Thursday night football game with the Browns and Jameis Winston. Like, that game was so back and forth the whole time. The Steelers, the Browns, it was like that first half of that game where there was no weather involved at all whatsoever, extremely boring football game. The second half of that game, when it looked like an absolute blizzard, fun as hell. Because every play, you could tell that every single player was like, hell yeah, it's a snow game. Jameis called it an NFL Films game. That's also how I felt about the 49ers and the Buffalo Bills. Like, yeah, the offensive output was a lot smaller. Guys aren't, they're running as fast. It's cold. It's tough to play in those conditions. But you want to win so bad. When you are cold, when you are wet, when the conditions have you miserable, you don't want to end that game and think about losing. You want to end the game and think about, we overcame a really good football team and we overcame the weather. Look at how fun this was. And I think the post-game celebrations that you saw with like Sean McDermott doing the snow angels and everything like that is a manifestation of how when snow or rain or weather is involved in sporting events, it transports you back to just like being a kid, having fun, and wanting to win the damn game. So again, to set it up, I hate the cold. But when I watch games where weather is involved, I can understand players just being like, hell yeah, we're going to get out. We're not going to suffer through the weather and then also lose the football game. So it does make it a lot of fun.
I'm so glad you went on a 25-minute rant. Well, whatever the positive version of a rant is, because I only asked you because I felt the same way. But I asked someone who was there at the game, someone we know who was there at the game, and he was like, it was cold, man.
Yeah, I would hate just standing there watching it, but I would love to play in it, if that makes sense.
All right, Josh Allen.
Yes.
Good player. Really good player.
Good ball player.
MVP
all right, so moving
player.
on to Jared Goff. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, I think what you said about like the way this offense has changed, not just from a personnel standpoint at the receiver position. To me, the thing that we've been saying needs to happen is they need to have two offenses that both work. They need to be able to get under center and run the football. They can do that now. Like, they're good at it. And they need to be, and then you also have the ability for Josh Allen just to be Josh Allen and go gun and kill teams. But they haven't been in a ton of games other than the Chiefs game, maybe off the top of my head, where like they've needed just the pure Superman Josh Allen. And that's great. Like, that's great. Like, whether he wins the MVP or not, I don't even care. What I care about is I think this leads to more success in the playoffs. Now, with that said, the success in the playoffs thing, they've had success in the playoffs. Like, everyone would say they've disappointed in the playoffs. Like, offensively, they're a Super Bowl caliber team. They've been a Super Bowl caliber team. But I think what I'm hoping for is that this offense sets them up better in the regular season to, like you said, take some pressure off of Josh Allen. They're gonna be the Josh Allen team in the playoffs. Like you don't have a choice once you get to those levels, once you get to playing against those defenses. So it's really just like kind of like keeping him from being too beat up, from throwing too many passes, from having to escape pressure all the time in the regular season, so that he's healthy enough in the playoffs when it matters the most. And you're hoping to get a bye week, which I think is still on the table for sure, especially the way the Chiefs are playing all these one-score games. So I think this sets them up better in terms of Josh Allen being a great quarterback in the playoffs. When at this point, with how bad the AFC East continues to be, that's kind of where they expect to be every season.
I think the Chiefs are going to drop one, right? I mean, we got 5 games left.
Chargers this week.
Chargers, Browns, Texans, Steelers, Broncos. I think they drop one of those games.
I think so too.
So at least one of those games. So they're at least going to, if Buffalo can run the table and they can have the same record, they beat Kansas City head-to-head. So I got to think that's the first tiebreaker for playoff seeding. I know it's not for the draft. Like, the draft's very different. Like, people think about the NFL draft and they go like, well, unfortunately this team beat this team. Head-to-head is much further down the tiebreaker when it comes to settling the NFL draft spot. But I believe playoff head-to-head comes up pretty quickly. So they already beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So there's a very real possibility that you're right. We have the Buffalo Bills with the 1 seed. And if they do, that's paramount. They are 6-0 at home this season. I mean, they are very clearly a team that can become superhuman when they play in front of their fans and just in an environment that they're very comfortable with. Not to say that they've been bad on the road. Obviously, they're a 10-2 team. They're fantastic everywhere, but undefeated at home this season, and it's very clearly an advantage for them. Sometimes it just happens to be like, yeah, okay, they don't have to travel. It's not that big of a deal. I feel like for Buffalo specifically, it is a really big deal. And I know Kansas City has gone in there and won before, but you're right. It just feels like they are. I look at the run game, I really do. And I think the run game is so healthy with this team. And for a while, I used to feel as though, okay, the run game is good for the Buffalo Bills, but I think the run game is good because of Josh Allen. And Josh Allen is certainly an element of the run game now, but you look at this past week, this is a snow game, right? I mean, like, you would want to run the football plenty. Josh Allen had 3 designed carries for them in this game, 18 total rushing yards, and that was 4th best on the team. And that's what you love to see, because Ty Johnson, 28 total yards, but 5.6 yards per carry average. Ray Davis, 63 yards, 5.7 yards per carry average. James Cook, 107 yards, 7.6 yards per carry average. He had the 65-yard long run, which really boosts that up and helps that out. But to me, it's the rushing element of this team, and you saying like how the offense, it's not just about Josh Allen. He can truly hand the ball off and feel good about it. Sometimes you get quarterbacks like this where you go, okay, we're going to hand the ball off because we sort of have to, because our quarterback can't take every single play. I don't feel like that's the case in Buffalo. I'm more comfortable and confident with this Buffalo Bills team reaching the Super Bowl than I ever have been. And that means a lot, because I am somebody who picked Buffalo to reach the Super Bowl the last 2 seasons. I really liked what this team was able to do and how they were constructed and the stars that they have, but this year, they look more well-balanced on offense than they ever have before. And anytime you talk about having balance and then adding a player like Josh Allen once you get into the playoffs to say, like, okay, yeah, we just need to put the ball in his hands. How can you not have faith in this team to be a Super Bowl contender and make it to the Super Bowl? So I think that they have been fantastic in that regard. Are you worried at all whatsoever about, like, the lack of stars that they have in the passing game? I'm not. It feels like they complement each other very, very well, whether it's a big Khalil Shakir game, whether it's a Keon Coleman game where he has a couple of major catches, certainly Amari Cooper as well. Like, I look at this wide receiver core and I say, okay, yeah, there are some more star-studded receiving cores around the NFL, but it feels like it's the perfect group in Buffalo. So I wondered if you had any thoughts there as well.
Yeah, I think the worry thing would be if Amari Cooper they don't gel in time. But I assume they will. And once that happens, oh my God, they're going to be so good. Like they're going to be so good with Amari Cooper. Like Amari Cooper last year had a stretch, weeks like whatever it was, 13 to 17 or whatever, to 18, where he was like honestly one of the better top 5 receiver in the league. There's that capability there with Amari Cooper. Obviously, every year you get older, you have less of that. You have less possibility of that happening. But I do think there's a chance, and if they get it together, those two, I mean, they're going to be unstoppable.
All right, let's end things talking about Jared Goff. Hot button quarterback, feels like. Always is. Some people want him in the MVP conversations. Other people think that he's, just a Ben Johnson merchant. I don't know if Ben Johnson merchant's fair to Jared Goff, but when you look at how he played on Thanksgiving in the win that they had against the Chicago Bears, 21 for 34, 221 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He had 1 big-time throw in this game, no turnover-worthy plays, a 79.1 PFF passing grade. When you look at Jared Goff, really, week 1 and week 2 were not great for him. He had a 40.4 passing grade in week 1 against the Rams, and then a 49.1 passing grade against the Buccaneers in week 2. But since then, it's basically just been 70s and above for Jared Goff. He had 1 game against the Jags where he had a 91.8 overall grade. He had 1 game against the Texans where he had a 55.5. But basically, it's been right around 70, 75 is how he has been grading as a quarterback. And that's solid. I think people look at 70s, and again, they think back to numbers when they were going through high school and college, and they're like, oh, it's a C-. That means you think that he stinks. No. It's not really like that. It's better. You're a plus quarterback. You're taking care of the football. You're doing what you need to do if you got a passing grade in the 70s, especially consistency. What are your thoughts, sir? What are your thoughts on Jared Goff when it comes to how big of the piece of the puzzle he is for this Detroit Lions offense?
Yeah, I think he is a big piece of the puzzle. I think the play design that you see from Ben Johnson on a weekly basis is absolutely insane. Whether it's run game or pass game, there's so much stuff that they do that it just feels like it always works. I think the O-line is, it's obviously the best O-line in the league. But I think Goff has gotten to a place where I do feel comfortable. Like, he's not an MVP candidate, but are you comfortable with him saying like, hey, he might win it? He might be the quarterback in a Super Bowl team. He can lead a team to the Super Bowl, quote unquote. And it's like, yeah, I think so. I don't know how you defend the Lions as a whole. You need to obviously put pressure on Goff, but I think one of the things is pressure is like a bucket of many different types of things. And sometimes the pressure is on the offensive line kind of getting ridden back into the quarterback. And sometimes there's a pressure where like the guy is like the defensive lineman is there on you. They don't allow a lot of, hey, now the quarterback has to make a play by himself type of pressure. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. Like you can get maybe once in a while, you saw it, there's a really nice throw that Goff made where Sewell is kind of getting pushed back a little bit into Goff's lap, and then he's able to like kind of slide to his left and then make a throw to the opposite sideline to, I want to say Laporta, but I don't remember now. And it was a really nice throw, showed off some arm strength. Like those are the type of plays that they can get away with because he has that ability now. How do you get pressure? How do you disrupt the offense? We saw it in one game with the Tampa Bay. That feels like such a long time ago.
Yeah.
A little bit in the Cardinals game as well. Again, a long time ago. I don't know how. Like you blitz these guys, they average like 10 yards per play. It might even be like 12 yards per play against the blitz. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. How much of that? Blitz. I think everybody wants to know, like, how much of that do you give Goff credit for stuff like that versus Ben Johnson? Like, okay, he's getting pressure, the ball's coming out. Like, is that a Jared Goff? Do you feel like that is a Jared Goff adjusting well to pressure thing? Because if Goff is one thing, he's a smart quarterback. Like, there have been times when he's really not dealt with pressure very well, but it feels like this season at least, is one of his better seasons when it comes to dealing with pressure. Is that more of a, you think it's a Ben Johnson thing, or do you think that Jared Goff is raising the floor even higher for what it feels like he is able to do as a quarterback?
No, look, it starts with Ben Johnson, and it starts with the offensive line. Period. Then it's Ben Johnson, then it's probably the receivers, and then it's probably the running backs, and then it's Jared Goff. And I say all that, but this offense is so good that even though I would put Jared Goff at the bottom of that list, I still think he's playing well. Like, I don't think he's playing bad and he's being held up by everything else. He's still playing at a high level, which is why the offense is, astronomical in most weeks. That's kind of where it is. Like, yeah, he's at the bottom of that pile, but at the same time, he's so much better than like half the other quarterbacks would be in the offense that I still think it's good. Like, he's playing really well.
Is there something beyond the run game? Because we do talk about the run game a lot. Like, is there something beyond just the fact that, hey, you can hand it off to these two guys and feel really great about it because you've got the offensive line in front of them and Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are just really good players? Or is it something kind of beyond where it's like, no, like the way they are running the football, whether it's the efficiency or how they're running it, like it's setting things up so well to not only complement each other, but also complement the passing game. You talk about the run game obviously being paramount with what the Detroit Lions do. Is there something specific about how they're running the football, or is it just overall like these two dudes are just so good? The fact that you have the ability to hand the ball off to them so many times a game and feel good about it is enough to really elevate what this offense does.
I think the main thing is they're so good on the offensive line, and then you obviously have two different types of running backs who do different things. But with the offensive line, one of the issues is that they're so good at winning one-on-one blocks. So you play like a 3-4 and you put 5 guys on the defensive line, on the line of scrimmage. They win those one-on-one blocks. The whole point of playing like a 3-4 to a certain degree is like, hey, we're going to get a lot of one-on-ones on defense, and we're going to win those one-on-ones because it's hard to block people for long stretches of time. They do that, and then when you play in the 3-4 and you rush 5 guys, they kill you because you have less guys in coverage. And then you play 4 down, like a nickel 4 down, a classic over front or under front, and like they beat you there too because now they can double team and get to the second level, do all that stuff. It's really hard to stop these guys on the ground. The
way that I would say it honestly is, if Jared Goff is like even if people would agree with you, like if Jared Goff is like the lower piece of sort of that offense, if he's the lowest piece, your offense is unbelievable.
Yes, exactly. Like he's that type of player now. Again, yes. Is he a top 10 quarterback? No, but he's in the tier 3 or 4 or tier 3 probably, and with everything else they have there, that makes them a Super Bowl contender. And like, with all the misery that's happened in Detroit for so many years with the Lions, I really hope that this is the year they get it done.
There we go. Let us know what you think of these quarterbacks. We know y'all got takes on quarterbacks, so we would love to hear from you. The YouTube section, or the YouTube comment section, on PFF's YouTube channel is the best way to do that. Appreciate everybody watching and listening. For Seth Galina, I'm Trevor Sikkema. We will be back for another episode of the Quarterback Showcase for Week 14. See you guys then.